Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture series in linear algebra. Today we are going to talk about the basis of a vector space and the dimension of a vector space, and we will also talk about the rank theorem and invertible matrix theorem. First we'll take the definition of basis for a vector space or a basis for a subspace of a vector space. Okay, so we know that the if you are, say for example, given a space R3, okay, and if you are given a subspace which is spanned by one vector, okay, and we know it is a line passing through origin, and so you know that there are infinite many members in that on that line, so infinite many members in that set. Okay, so can we represent that set by some finite number of vectors or not? Okay, so that is what our basis is. Okay, so let us take the definition of basis, that let H be a subspace of a vector space V. Okay, so if you are given a vector space V and there is a subset H which is a subspace of V, then an index set of vectors B having members b1 b2 so on bp in V is a basis for H. Okay, if the two conditions are satisfied. The first is that this set is linearly independent. Okay, so that means there is no member in this set which can be written as a linear combination of other members. Okay, so it is a linearly independent set. Okay, the second condition is that the subspace spanned by the B, okay, coincides with H. That means H is span of these vectors in the B set. Okay, so any vector in H can be written as a linear combination of these vectors b1 b2 bp. Okay, so if these two conditions are satisfied, then this set B is a basis for H. Okay, so that means any set will be called a basis for a subspace H if that set is linearly independent and the span of that set is equal to the whole H. That means every member of H can be written as a linear combination of these vectors. Okay, now clearly we know that if you are in Rn space and if you write the identity matrix, then the columns of the identity matrix are linearly independent and there are n columns, so they span whole of Rn. Okay, so both the conditions are satisfied. Okay, so let if e1 e2 en be columns of n cross n identity matrix, so that the first column we denote with e1, so it is 1 0 0 0 so on 0. Second column of identity matrix we denote by e2 0 1 so on 0, and last column en 0 0 0 so on 1. Okay, so they are clearly linearly independent vectors and they are n in number, so they will span Rn. Okay, so independent set span Rn, so it is a basis for Rn. So that means this set, which is set of vectors e1 e2 so on en, is a basis for Rn, and this is called the standard basis for Rn. Okay, and basis is not a unique set. Okay, you can also write another set with n vectors in which the n vectors are linearly independent and they span Rn, so that will also be a basis for Rn. Okay, so if the basis consists of the columns of identity matrix, we call it standard basis. Otherwise we can have any set of linearly independent vectors spanning the space which will be a basis for that space. Okay, okay, so what we learned here is two small points, that a basis is a spanning set that is as small as possible. Okay, so clearly you see that if this is a basis, that it is, then it is a spanning set, means it spans the space for which it is a basis, and it is the smallest possible such set. Okay, that means uh, if you remove one of the vectors from this set, then this set after removing one vector will not span H. Okay, it will not span whole of H. There will be some vectors X which cannot be written as a linear combination there. Okay, so it is the smallest spanning set. Okay, Similarly, basis is a linearly independent set that is as large as possible. Okay, so it is the largest linearly independent set. That means if you add any vector to this, okay, if you add one more vector to this set, then this set will no longer remain linearly independent. It will become a linearly dependent set. Okay, so basically, or clearly, basis satisfies two conditions, that the set is linearly independent and it spans the space, okay, for which it is a basis, and it is the smallest spanning set. Okay, so if you remove one vector, it will not span that whole space. Okay, and it is the largest independent set. Okay, so if you add one vector, it will no longer remain independent. Okay, okay, so now let us take one example here. Okay, let v1 be a vector which is a vector in R3, because there are three elements here. Similarly, v2 is a vector in R3, v3 is a vector in R3, and H is a spanning set. H is span of v1, v2, v3. That means any vector in H can be written as a linear combination of v1, v2, v3. Okay, but this set does not mean that it is a basis for H, because it is spanning, but if it is independent, then it becomes a basis. Okay, so any spanning set which is independent is a basis. Okay, here it is given that it is a spanning set, v1, v2, v3 span whole of H, but to be a basis these three has to be linearly independent. But here we are saying that not that v3 can be written as a linear combination of v1, v2. Okay, the third vector is 5 times first vector plus 3 times second vector. That means the third vector is a linear combination of first two. That means these three vectors are not linearly independent. They are dependent and depended by this relation. So show that the span of these three vectors is same as the span of the two vectors. That means that if in a set you know that one of the vector is a dependent vector, say in this case v3 is a dependent vector depending upon v1, v2, then if you remove that dependent vector from the set, the remaining vectors will still span the same space which was spanned by the three vectors. Okay, so if here in this case v3 is a dependent vector, so if you remove v3, then v1, v2 will still span the same space which was spanned by the three vectors. Okay, and then the question is that find a basis for the subspace H. Okay, so what will be the basis of this? Okay, so clearly you can see that these three are now dependent, because third vector is a linear combination of first two. Okay, so they span H but they are not independent. Okay, but we are going to show that this is true. Okay, so if you remove the dependent vector, the new remaining set of remaining vectors still span H. Okay, and v1, v2 are linearly independent. Okay, v2 is not a multiple of v1, v1 is not a multiple of v2, so they are independent and span H. Okay, so these two vectors will form a basis for H. So okay, the solution is simple, that first we'll prove that this is true. Okay, that you remove the dependent variable, the remaining set still span the same space. Okay, so we are going to prove that if you take any vector in this set H, that vector will be in the second set, and if you take any vector in the second set, that vector is also in the first set. That means the two sets are equal. Okay, so let X be in span of v1, v2. Okay, so let X be any vector in this second set. We will prove that X is also here. Okay, so that means X can be written as a linear combination of v1, v2. Okay, so X can be written as c1, v1 plus c2, v2 for some scalar c1, c2, and it is easy that we can add a vector v3 with a scalar 0. These two equations are same. Okay, so that means X is also written as a linear combination of three vectors v1, v2, v3 with weights c1, c2 and 0. So this means that X can be written as a linear combination, so that means X belongs to span of v1, v2, v3. Okay, so X clearly belongs to span of these three vectors, and span of these three vectors is H. Okay, so any vector in this span is also is in H. Okay, now we will prove the converse, that any vector is in which is in H is also in this spanning set. Okay, so now let that X belongs to H set, and H set is span of these three vectors. Okay, So clearly that x can be written as a linear combination of these three vectors. So x can be written as c1 v1 plus c2 v2 plus c3 v3. But we know that this set is dependent and v3 is a combination of v1 v2. v3 is 5 v1 plus 3 v2. So we can substitute v3 value as this. Okay, and so x can be rewritten as a linear combination by substituting v3. So x is rewritten as a scalar times v1 plus another scalar times v2. That means x is a linear combination of only v1 and v2. So clearly x belongs to span of v1 v2. Okay, and so any vector x in H is also in span of v1 v2, and any vector in span of v1 v2 is in H. Okay, so that means these two sets must be same. Okay, so that proves our first part, that the span of three vectors is same as span of two vectors if the third vector is removed because it is a dependent vector. Okay, now what will be the basis for the subspace H? Okay, clearly because v1 v2 are two linearly independent vectors and they span H. Okay, so it becomes a basis. Okay, so since v1 v2 is a linearly independent set and these two vectors span whole of H, okay, because these spans are equal, so this set of two vectors is a basis for H. Okay, and because for basis we need a linearly independent set which spans that space. Okay, so now this example I have taken is to show you that if you have any linearly dependent set which spans the space, you can remove the dependent vectors and the remaining independent vectors will still span the space and will become a basis. Okay, so we have a theorem which proves this result and we call it as a spanning set theorem, and this says that if you have a set S which contains v1 v2 so on vp p vectors, and this set is in a vector space V, and let H be the span of vectors v1 v2 vp. If one of the vectors in S, okay, if one of the vectors in the set say vk vector is a linear combination of the remaining vectors in S, okay, that means if one of the vectors is a dependent vector in this set, then the set formed from S by removing that dependent vector still spans H. This is the same thing that we did in last example, that we had three vectors and one third vector is a dependent vector. So if we remove the dependent vector, the remaining vector still spans that same space. Okay, so that's one part. And second is if H is not a set containing the only zero vector, that means H if it is a set of a single vector, it has to be a non-zero vector. Okay, then some subset of S is a basis for H. Okay, so there, by doing this process of removing dependent vectors, we can find a basis for this space. Okay, so proof of this, so first part, say by rearranging the list of vectors in S, okay, these vectors v1 v2 vp, if necessary we may suppose that the last vector is a linear combination of the preceding vectors. Okay, so say vp is a linear combination of v1 v2 vp minus 1. Okay, so vp can be written as a1 v1 plus a2 v2 plus so on ap minus 1 vp minus 1. Okay, so any vector can be a linear combination of other. Okay, so we can rearrange them to make it the last vector, and then so we can write this equation. And so if there is any vector in the set H, then because H is span of these vectors, then X can be written as a linear combination of these P vectors. So we can write for any X in H, we can write X as a linear combination of V1, V2 and Vp. Okay, and because Vp is given as a linear combination of preceding vectors, we can substitute it here to and rewrite the right hand side to write that X is actually a linear combination of only the first p minus 1 vectors. And so any vector in X can be written as v1 v2 vp minus 1 linear combination. So that means it is this H will be spanned by p minus 1 vectors. Okay, so Substituting the expression for Vp from first to second, it is easy to see that x is a linear combination of first p minus 1 vectors only, and because x is arbitrary, okay, so any vector of h we have taken, so that means this set v1 v2 vp minus 1 will still span h, okay, because x was arbitrary vector and x can be written as a linear combination of this, so this set spans the h, okay. So this was the first proof that if you remove the dependent vector, the new set will still span h, okay. The second part is that we can find a linearly independent basis by doing this, okay. uh, so if all the vectors, okay, if the original spanning set S is linearly independent, okay, there is no dependent vector, then there is nothing to prove because that set spans H and that is linearly independent, so it is a basis for H, okay. So the proof is over here. But if the set is not linearly independent, then by part 1 we can remove the dependent variable and reduce the set to one less vector, okay. So otherwise one of the vector is S depends on the other and can be deleted by first part, okay. Now this new set, if it is linearly independent, by part A it still spans it, so it becomes a basis. If no, we can that means this new set is again a dependent set, so there will be again a vector which will be dependent, so we can again remove that vector to write again a new set, and we will have say v1 v2 up to vp minus 2 vectors, okay. So again we can check whether that set is linearly independent or not, okay, and we can continue this process until we find a linearly independent set, okay. So long as there are two or more vectors in the spanning set, we can repeat this procedure until the spanning set is linearly independent, hence it becomes a basis for H, okay, because it will still span H and it is a linearly independent set. If we are at end with only one vector, then that one vector will be definitely non-zero, okay. So if the spanning set is eventually reduced to one vector, that vector will be non-zero, and because a single non-zero vector is linearly independent, so that will become a basis, okay. Because, and this will be true because we have said that H has to be a set containing single non-zero vector, okay. It cannot be a set of single vector of only zero vector, okay. So definitely by this process we can reduce to a basis of H, okay. So if you are given a set which spans H or which spans a vector space, then you just need to see if it is independent. If it is not, find the dependent vector, remove that, okay, and the new set, if it spans H, then it becomes a basis for H. Okay, so now we have done in the previous lecture two special subspaces. One is the null space of A and other is the column space of A. So what about the basis of these two spaces? What will be the basis for null space A and what will be the basis for column space A? So first we know that the vectors in null space A are the vectors x which satisfy the homogeneous equation Ax is equal to 0. Okay, so if you solve the homogeneous equation Ax is equal to 0 and find out all the solutions, those solution belongs to null space A. Okay, so we already learned this, that to find the vectors that span the null space A by solving the equation Ax is equal to 0. Okay, and we also know that the vectors obtained by this process, when we solve this, we find the pivot columns and non-pivot columns. Pivot columns are linked with the basic variables and non-pivot columns are linked with free variables. So we can solve for basic variables in terms of free variables, and then we can calculate x vector and decompose that as a linear combination of vectors, okay. And we have already seen that those vectors are linearly independent, and so this method of finding this solution x by the method that we have discussed in previous lecture automatically produces a basis for null space A, okay. So we just need to solve the homogeneous equation Ax is equal to 0, find the x vector, and once you calculate the x vector, in terms of span of combination of vectors or as a linear combination of vectors, those vectors automatically form the basis for null space A. Now the other side is the column space A, and we know that column space A is the linear combination of all columns of A, okay. So if there are any dependent columns, we can remove them, and the remaining columns will form the basis. So that means the pivot columns of A form the basis for the column space A. Okay, so the pivot columns of the matrix A form the basis for the column space A. So if you have to find column space A basis from the matrix A, you just need to find out what columns of A are pivot columns, and then those columns will become bases. Okay, it is important to note here that we are talking about columns of A. Okay, but for finding pivot columns, we usually reduce it to equivalent form and see what are the pivot positions. Okay, so you can reduce to equivalent form, find the pivot positions, but then you have to return to the original matrix to write the basis. Okay, we cannot write the basis from the equivalent matrix. Okay, because that may not be spanning the column space. Okay, so row operations can change the column space of matrix. So find equivalent form to note the pivot columns, and then write the basis of column space A by using the pivot columns of the original matrix A and not from the equivalent or reduced equivalent matrix. Okay, so this is important. Say let us take examples and find a basis for null space A. Okay, where A is a 3 by 5 matrix. Okay, so as I said that any vector will belong to null space A if that vector will satisfy the homogeneous equation Ax is equal to 0. Okay, so all such x which satisfies that will belong to this null space A. So we only need to do is solve homogeneous equation Ax is equal to 0, and we know how to solve this. We write the augmented matrix, which is a matrix of A and 0. Okay, so augmented matrix. Okay, the first 5 columns are these matrix A, and sixth column or last column is the right hand side 0 vector. Okay, reduce it to equivalent form, and because we have to find a solution or find x vector, so reduce it to reduced equivalent form. Okay, so we can apply steps. Okay, this is the leading position, so you can use row operations, or you can interchange first and second row to make this element 1. Okay, which will be required for reduced equivalent form, and then apply operation. Okay, so let us take row 2 interchange row 1. Okay, so row 1 becomes row 2 and row 2 becomes row 1. Okay, then use this first leading element and make the elements at 2 1 and 3 1 0. Okay, so apply row 2 plus 3 row 1 impact on row 2, and row 3 minus 2 row 1 impact on row 3. Okay, so this we are doing for now last previous few lectures, so you easily know this. Okay, uh, okay, so apply this. Impact is on second row, so second row element change, and here impact is on third row, so third row element change. First row remains the same. Okay, in the second row this becomes the leading element. Okay, so we have to make this element at 3 3 position 0. So these elements are multiple of 5, so you can divide second row with 5 and make this element 1 and then reduce, or you can reduce and then later you make it 1. Okay, either way. So here we are doing is 1 by 5 of row 2 impact on row 2, so we are making this element 1. Okay, so 1 2 minus 2, first and third row remains same. Then row 3 minus row 2 impact on row 3 to make this element 0. Okay, so that we will have a equivalent form, then we will reduce it to reduced equivalent form. Okay, and because we have to reduce it to reduced equivalent form, so you can also apply row 1 minus 2 times row 2 impact on row 1 to make this element here 0. Okay, because in reduced equivalent form the pivot elements are the only elements in the only non-zero elements in the column. Okay, so it is already the only non-zero, this has to be non-zero, and these two has to be 0. Okay, so here we apply row 3 minus row 2. Okay, so this is the equivalent form. Clearly system is consistent. We have pivot columns 2 and non-pivot columns 3. Remember, this is the right hand side. Okay, and so to find solution, reduce it. Okay, so row 1 minus 2 times row 2 impact on row 1. Okay, so that will reduce it to a reduced equivalent form. Okay, so now it is a reduced equivalent form. We have the basic variables x1 and x3, first and third column, and free column are second, fourth and fifth. So we have free variable x2, x4 and x5. So we can write the solution x as x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, and then we can put x1 and x3 in terms of x2, x4, x5 and find a solution. Okay, so the solution vector x is having 5 variable x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, and x1 is 2 times x2 plus x3 minus 3x4, okay, sorry, minus 3x5, okay. So we can write this. X2 is a free variable, so it remains x2. X3 is the basic variable, so we can write it as minus 2x4 plus 2x5, okay. So minus 2x4 plus 2x5. X4 and x5 are free variables, and then we can decompose it to write as x2 times the coefficients of x2 from this, okay. So 2 1 minus, oh no, 2 1 0 0 and 0, okay, plus x4 times coefficients of x4, so 1 0 minus 2 1 0, okay, plus x5 times coefficients of x5 minus 3 0 2 0 1, okay. So clearly you can see this. So, and these vectors we can call them v1 v2 v3. So clearly x vector, which is a solution or satisfying the homogeneous equation, that can be written as a linear combination of three vectors v1 v2 v3, okay. So these three vectors v1 v2 v3, they are in null space A, they span the null space A, and these three vectors are linearly independent. You can easily check, okay. Third vector cannot be written as linear combination of first two, because this element in the fifth position cannot be obtained from these two because they are 0 0. Similarly, this second vector cannot be obtained as a linear combination of first third, because this fourth element is 1, which cannot be written as a linear combination of 0 plus 0, okay. Similarly, first cannot be written as combination of second and third because of this element 1. This cannot be written as combination of 0 0. These three vectors are linearly independent. They span the null space of A. So these three vectors will form the basis for the null space A, okay. Okay, so clearly these three vectors spans null space A. These are linearly independent, okay. So that's the definition of basis, okay. Independent vectors which spans the space, okay. So it becomes the basis for the null space A. So if you have to find the basis for null space A, what you have to do is solve the homogeneous system, find the solution, okay. Automatically the vectors which are generated in the linear combination, which that they form the basis, okay. Now the second example is find a basis for the column space A, okay. So in column space A, all such vectors comes which can be written as a linear combination of these columns, okay. So that means we only need to find out what are the pivot columns out of these 5 and what are the non-pivot columns, and the pivot columns from here will form the basis for the column space A. So we have to reduce it to equivalent form to find the pivot columns, that's it, okay. So write this matrix A, okay. So for basis of column space A, find pivot columns of A by reducing to equivalent form, okay. So given this matrix, uh, first you find the first row, first element is the non-zero number, so it becomes the leading element. So make all the elements below this as 0. So apply second row minus 3 times first row, impact on second, so this element will become 0. This for this element, apply row 3 minus 2 times row 1, impact on row 3, so becomes 0. And for last element, apply row 4 minus 5 times row 1, so 5 minus 5 will become 0, so this element will become 0, okay. So apply 3 row operations, okay, and it will immediately make the elements in the first column 0 below the first element, okay. And all the elements in second, third and fourth row will change due to these operations. Now in the second row, find the leading element, okay. So you find that it is at the 3 2 position, because at 2 2 position it is 0 and all element below are 0, okay. So no element in the second column, okay. If there is any non-zero number, you can interchange row to bring it here, okay, but all are 0, so leading element is at 3 2 position. So now we will use this element to make the bottom two elements as 0, okay. So the element at 3 3 and at 4 3 position, they are to be made 0. So apply row 3 minus row 2, impact at row 3, and row 4 minus 2 times row 2, impact and row 4, okay. So apply these two operations, reduce these two elements to 0, okay. And now in the third row, you see that this element is the leading element, so you can use this to make the element last element 0, okay. So apply row 4 with 3 by 4 times row 3, impact on row 4, okay, and so this last element will become 0. So immediately now you have the equivalent form, and you can see what columns are pivot columns. Okay, the leading element in first row makes this as a pivot column. Okay, this is a pivot position. From second row this is the pivot position, so third column becomes the pivot column, and then third row this is the pivot position, so fifth column becomes the pivot column. So first, third and fifth column are the pivot columns of the matrix. Okay, and so if you have to write the basis for column space A, it will be the first, third and fifth column, but from the original matrix A and not from this matrix. Okay, if we write from the equivalent form, then it will be a wrong answer. So you have to write the columns from the original matrix A. Okay, so this column 1 3 2 5 0 1 1 2 minus 1 5 2 8, these three columns or these three vectors form the basis for the column space A. Okay, so you can clearly see first, third and fifth column, they form the basis for the column space. Now we define what is we mean by the dimension of a vector space. Okay, so dimension is basically how many vectors are there in the basis. Okay, so if V is spanned by a finite set, then V is said to be finite dimensional, and the dimension of V, written as dim of V or dimension of V, is the number of vectors in a basis for V. Okay, so dimension of a vector space V is the number of vectors in the basis for V. Okay, and if the number of vectors are finite, then we call it finite dimensional. If the number of vectors are infinite in the basis, then we call it infinite dimensional. Okay, so if V is not spanned by a finite set, then V is said to be infinite dimensional. Okay, so when we deal with Rn spaces, say R2, R3, R4, so we know that for R3 the number of elements in the basis are 3. Okay, so it is finite dimensional. Similarly in R7 the basis will contain 7 vectors, so it is a finite dimensional. Okay, the dimension of a zero vector space, if V is a vector space containing only one vector which is zero vector, we define its dimension to be 0. Okay, now for example the standard basis for Rn contain n vectors. Okay, because to span Rn we need n vectors in the set, and those vectors has to be linearly independent. So n linearly independent vectors span Rn. So clearly dimension of Rn is n. Okay, so because dimension of Rn is the number of vectors in the basis, and in the basis of Rn we have seen that E1, E2, En are n vectors which are the standard basis. Okay, so dimension of Rn space is n. So similarly dimension of R3 will be 3, dimension of R2 will be 2, and so on. Okay, if we see the polynomial basis 1t t square, so it's a basis for polynomials of degree at most 2. Okay, so if you generate the polynomial of degree at most 2, then it will have this as the standard basis, and it shows that the dimension of the p2 is 3, where p2 means the polynomial of dimension at at most 2. Okay, so in general if you have a set P of polynomials of all order, then it will be infinite dimension. Okay, so in general dimension Pn is n plus 1, where Pn is a set of polynomials of order n. Okay, so and if we call the P to be the space of all polynomials, okay, of any order, then it is infinite dimensional. Okay, because its basis will go on like 1 t, t square, t cube, t4, t5, so on. It will continue to be infinite. Okay, so there will be infinite elements there. Let H be spanned by two vectors v1, v2, and v1 is this vector, v2 is this vector. So clearly H is a spanning set which is spanned by two vectors, and these two vectors are linearly independent. Sec v2 is not a multiple of v1, v1 is not a multiple of v2. Okay, so two linearly independent vectors which span H. So these two vectors form the basis for H, and because there are only two vectors in the basis of H, that means dimension of H is 2. Okay, so again dimension is the number of vectors in the basis. So if you know the basis, then you can just count how many vectors are there, that is the dimension of that basis. Okay, Now, for example, the subspaces of R3, they can be classified by dimension as follows. Okay, the first is that the zero dimensional subspace. Okay, so zero dimensional subspace means only the zero subspace, the set containing only one vector, which is the zero vector. So we call it zero dimensional subspace. The one dimensional subspace means that there is only one non-zero vector in the basis, okay, because dimension is how many vector are in the basis. So one dimensional means there is one vector in the basis, okay, so there is one non-zero vector in the basis. So any subspace spanned by a single non-zero vector, okay, and we know that if there is a subspace which is spanned by a single non-zero vector, then we have seen this in previous lecture that this generates a line which passes through origin and that non-zero vector. Okay, so such subspaces are lines through origin and also passes through that non-zero vector. Okay, uh, two-dimensional subspaces. Okay, so any subspace spanned by two linearly independent vectors. Okay, such subspaces are planes through origin and through those two vectors. Okay, so and finally we can have a three-dimensional subspace. Okay, and this is R3, so three vectors, and those three vectors will span whole of R3, so it is only possible that three-dimensional subspace is R3 itself. Okay, so three-dimensional subspaces are nothing but only R3 itself. Any three linearly independent vectors in R3, they span all of R3. Okay, so R3 itself is the three-dimensional subspace here. Uh, one important result, which is the basis theorem. Okay, it says that if V be a p dimensional vector space with p greater than equal to 1. Okay, so that means if you know the dimension of a vector space, okay, then to form a basis, it is uh, sufficient to know the independent vectors or span, other is automatically true. Okay, that means that any linearly independent set of exactly p elements in V is automatically a basis for V. So we do not need to prove that it will span because we know the dimension. Okay, so if you have any linearly independent set of p elements where p is the dimension, and by p dimension means that basis will have p vectors. So if you have any linearly independent set of p vectors, then it will automatically become a basis. Okay, it is definitely going to span that space. Similarly, if you have any set of p elements that spans the space, it is automatically a basis. Okay, because if it spans the space, these elements are definitely going to be linearly independent. If they are not linearly independent, they cannot span whole of space. Okay, so if you know the dimension, either linear independence or spanning, one is proved, then other is automatically true. Okay, and so it automatically becomes the basis. Now what will be the dimension of null space A and dimension of column space A? Okay, so as we said that in the basis of null space A, the vectors will come from the homogeneous solution. Okay, and we have seen that we get as many vectors as the number of free variables in the equivalent form. Okay, so dimension of null space A is the number of free variables in the equation Ax is equal to 0. So if you know how many non-pivot columns are there, okay, because non-pivot columns are linked with free variables. Okay, so for the homogeneous system, if you know how many non-pivot columns of A are there, that much will be the dimension of null space A. Okay, because we are going to get that many vector in the basis of null space A. Okay, so if you have any homogeneous system with two free variables, that means two non-pivot columns are there, so dimension of null space is 2. That means the basis of null space A will contain two vectors. Okay, similarly the dimension of column space A is the number of pivot columns of A, because in the basis of column space A we get the pivot columns of A. So if you count those pivot columns, that will become the dimension of column space A. Okay, so it is very simple. Okay, so for example, find the dimension of null space A and column space A for this okay matrix. So we already solved this. This is the same example. Okay, now we are going to try and find dimension. So what we have to do is solve the homogeneous system for null space A and find out how many non-pivot columns are there. And for column space A dimension, we need to know how many pivot columns are there. Okay, so there are total 5 columns. If you know column space A how many are there, then immediately you know how many in null space A. Okay, so let us reduce it to equivalent form and then see how many pivot columns and how many non-pivot columns are there. Okay, so we have used this example in few previous slides, so I'm going to be quick here. Okay, we replaced row 2 and row 1, and then we apply the uh, row transformation by taking this leading element, make these two 0. Okay, so we apply these two row operations. Then with this leading element we divide with 5 and apply it row 3 minus row 2. Okay, so this we already did. Okay, so this reduces to equivalent form. Okay, now we know that there are 2 pivot columns and there are 3 free variables. Okay, so this first and third is a pivot column, so definitely the dimension of column space A is 2 because there are 2 pivot columns, and there are 3 free variables. Remember, this is not considered because the right hand side of homogeneous. Okay, so there are 3 free columns or 3 free variables linked here. So dimension of null space A is 3. That means we are going to add 3 vectors in the basis for null space A. So dimension of column space A is 2, number of pivot columns in A, and dimension of null space A is 3, number of non-pivot columns in A. Okay. Now we take another definition, which is the row space A. If A is an m cross n matrix, then each row of this matrix will have n entries. Okay, each row has n entries. Okay, you can see because there are n columns here, and thus can be identified with a vector. Okay, so each row, we can call each row as a vector, and because there are n elements, these vectors are in Rn space. Okay, the set of all linear combination of row vectors is called the row space of A and is denoted by a row of A. Okay, just like column space A is denoted as linear combination of columns of A, row space A is denoted as, or is a set of all linear combination of rows of A. Okay, each row in m cross n matrix A has n entries. Okay, as we said here, so the vectors are in Rn. That means row space A is a subspace of Rn. Okay, so it's a subspace and it's a subspace of Rn. Okay, so one can prove the properties of subspace, that zero vector will be there. Okay, you take any two vectors or in, then sum will be there and the span of any vector will be there. Okay. If two matrices A and B are row equivalent, okay, row equivalent, remember that one is obtained from other by applying row operations. Okay, then their row spaces are same. Okay, their row spaces do not change. A and B are row equivalent, then A and B will have the same row spaces. Further, if B is a equivalent form of A or B is in equivalent form, the non-zero rows of B form a basis for the row space of A as well as for the row space of B. Okay, so if you are given any matrix, that means, okay, and you have to find the basis for that matrix, you need to reduce it to equivalent form, and then the non-zero rows of the equivalent form will form the basis for the row space A. Okay, dimension of row space A is equal to dimension of column space A. Okay, because we are calculating the dimension as the number of elements in the basis, and dimension of row space A means that how many vectors are there in the basis of row space A, and we see that the basis of row space A are the non-zero rows in the equivalent form. Okay, and the, remember, the non-zero rows also tells us how many pivot positions are there, because if you have a non-zero row, it will give one pivot position. Okay, so it, if there are three non-zero rows, then it will also mean that there will be three pivot positions. Okay, so there will be three pivot columns, and so that also gives us the dimension of column spaces. So dimension of row space and dimension column space are always equal. Okay, now there is one example, that find the dimension and basis for the row space, the column space and the null space of the matrix. Okay, so For the row space, we need to reduce it to equivalent form. For the column space, we need to know what are the pivot columns. So again, we need to reduce it to equivalent form. And for the null space, we need to find the solution of homogeneous. So we can start with writing augmented matrix for the homogeneous and reduce it to equivalent form, because for all three cases we at least require that. Okay, so write the augmented matrix. Okay, now reduce it to equivalent form. Okay, so again at this 1 1 position will be the leading element. So either you can replace with row 2 or you can interchange with row 4 to make this element 1. Okay, or you can keep it minus 2 and make these three elements 0 from the starting. Any way you with any of such operations you can start. Okay, so here we are doing is row 1 interchange with row 2 so that this leading element becomes 1. Okay, and then we'll apply row 2 minus 2 row 2 plus 2 times row 1 to make this 0, row 3 minus 3 row 1 to make this 0, and row 4 minus row 1 to make this 0. Okay, so these three have to be made 0. So apply these rules. Okay, immediately we'll have that the first column all other elements become 0. Now in the second row, this becomes the leading element at 2 2 position. So we have to use this and make the elements below it as 0 0. Okay, so apply third row minus 2 times second row and impact on third row to make this 0, and row 4 minus 2 4 times row 2 impact on row 4. Okay, so with these two operations, these two elements will become 0. Okay, and immediately you see that the third row and fourth row other elements are also changed, and the third row is completely 0. So now we have to interchange row 3 and row 4. Okay, for equivalent form you know that any row of all 0 must be at the bottom. Okay, so interchange row 3 and row 4, so it becomes our equivalent form. Okay, so these pivot position are at 1 1 2 2 and third row fourth column. Okay, so 3 4 position. So clearly there are three pivot columns, there are two free variables. Okay, and the basis of row space A are the non-zero rows of equivalent matrix. So this is the equivalent matrix. So the first row, second row, and third row, these become the basis for row space A. Okay, so basis for row space A is this first row, this second row, and this third row. Okay, and how many vectors are there? Three vectors. Okay, each row is a vector here. Okay, so dimension of row space A is 3. Okay, so immediately we know that dimension of column space A is also 3, and what will become in the basis of column space A? The non-zero columns of A, non-zero pivot columns of A. Okay, so pivot columns are first column, second column, and fourth column, but not to be written from here, to be written from the original matrix A. Okay, so basis for the column space A are the first column, second column, and fourth column of the original matrix A, and dimension of column space A you can clearly see is again 3. Okay, for null space A basis we need to further reduce it to reduced equivalent form, but from here only we know how many vectors we are going to get. How many non-pivot columns are there? The third column is non-pivot, the fifth column is non-pivot. So there are two free variables. Dimension of null space A is 2, so we are going to get two vectors in the basis of null space A. Okay, so reduce it to reduced equivalent form. Okay, divide this third row with minus 4 to make this 1, and then use that to make these two elements 0. Okay, so divide third row with minus 1 by 4 to make this element 1. Now use this element to make the above two elements 0, because in reduced equivalent form in pivot columns pivot elements are the only non-zero elements. Okay, so use row 1 minus row 3 impact on row 1, and row 2 minus 2 row 3 impact on row 2. Okay, so these two elements become 0. Now again there is another pivot where we have a non-zero element above, so apply row 1 minus 3 row 2 impact on row 1 to make this element 0. Okay, so then it will become a reduced equivalent form. Okay, so finally applying this, it is now a reduced equivalent form. You can clearly see pivot positions are 1 1 1, and they are the only non-zero, and other are also satisfied. All the five properties are satisfied. Okay, so now we can calculate the solution from here. Okay, we can calculate that x1 is minus x3 minus x5. Okay, x3 and x5 are free variables. X2 is 2x3 minus 3x5 and x4 is 5x5, and we can put the solution x vector as x1 x2 x3 x4 x5, where x1 x2 and x4 we can substitute in terms of x3 and x5. Okay, so the vector x satisfying homogeneous system is x vector, which is x1 x2 x3 x4 x5. x1 we can calculate in terms of x3 x5, okay, x2 as x3 x5, and x3 is a free variable, it remains there, x4 in terms of x5, okay, and x5 is a free variable, and then we can decompose it into sum of two vectors, okay, x3 times coefficient of x3 plus x5 times coefficient of x5 from it. Okay, so clearly this is a linear combination of two vectors v1 and v2. Okay, so these two vectors form the basis for null space A. Okay, and so dimension of null space A is 2. Okay, as we said earlier. Okay, so this is how we calculate the basis and dimensional for the column space, null space, and row space. Now we are going to take a final definition, the rank theorem, which says that the dimensions of the column space and the row space of an M cross N matrix A are equal. This we already said. Okay, and this common dimension is called the rank of the matrix A, also equals the number of pivot positions of A and satisfies this equation. Okay, so this already we said that rank is equal to number of pivot positions. Okay, it is also equal to the dimension of column space A, and it is also equal to dimension of row space A, and so it satisfies this equation that the rank of A plus dimension of null space A equals n, where n is the total number of columns of the matrix A. So you see that rank of A is dimension of column space A, that means how many pivot columns are there, that tells us rank, and dimension of null space A, we have already seen that it tells us how many elements are in the basis of null space A, which is equal to how many free variables are there or non-pivot columns are there. So how many pivot columns are there plus how many non-pivot columns are there, add them is equal to total columns. Okay, so total columns equal to pivot column plus non-pivot column. That's rank theorem. Okay, so rank of A plus dimension of null space A equals n. Now take example that if A is a 7 by 9 matrix with two-dimensional null space. Two-dimensional null space means that the basis for null space A contains two vectors. Okay, right? So dimension of null space A is 2. What is the rank of A? Okay, so what is the rank of matrix A? So rank of matrix A plus dimension is total number of columns. Now here total number of columns are 9. Dimension of null space A is given 2. So rank of A is simple. It is 9 minus 2 equals to 7. Okay. So take one more example. Could a 6 by 9 matrix have a two-dimensional null space? If you are given a 6 by 9 matrix, can it have a two-dimensional null space? Okay. So answer is no, it is not possible. Okay, because if it has a two-dimensional null space, if dimension of null space A is 2, number of columns are 9, then rank of A plus 2 equals 9 means rank of A will be 7 again. But rank of A cannot be 7 for this matrix, because the 6 by 9 matrix, the maximum possible rank for this matrix is 6. Okay, so no, if dimension of space A is 2, then rank of A is 7, which is not possible, as the rank of A cannot exceed 6. So we have learned this in previous lectures, that how to calculate rank, and for M cross N matrix what can be a maximum rank. Okay, so here it cannot exceed 6, but if dimension of space is 2, then rank has to be 7, which is not possible. Okay, so finally I gave you invertible matrix theorem. Okay, so let A be a square matrix of n by n. Okay, the following statements are equivalent, that means they are all true or all false. So if you know any one of the statement is true for this matrix A, then every statement is true. If you know one of the statement is false, then every statement we are going to write is false. Okay, the first statement is A is an invertible matrix. Okay, so if A is invertible matrix, if this statement is true, then every statement that we are going to write will be true. If A is not an invertible matrix, then every statement we are going to write is false. Okay, first statement after this is that A is row equivalent to n cross n identity matrix. Okay, so we know that if matrix is invertible, we can row reduce it to a identity matrix. Okay, so if A is invertible, this is definitely true. Okay, A has n pivot positions. Okay, so if A is invertible, then A will have n pivot position. For if A do not have n pivot position, that means there is a free column. That means determinant has to be non-zero and A will not be invertible. Okay, so A definitely have n pivot position. That means all columns are pivot columns in that case if A is a invertible matrix. The homogeneous system will have only trivial solution. Okay, because there are n pivot positions, all columns are pivot columns, there is no free variable, so definitely homogeneous system will have only trivial solution, because for non-trivial solution we need at least one free variable, okay, one non-pivot column. So this is again true. The columns of A form a linearly independent set. Okay, that is again true, because if the columns are linearly dependent, if any one column is linearly dependent, then that column will not be a pivot column, and so homogeneous system will have infinite solution. So definitely they are linearly independent, only then they will have pivot columns. The linear transformation is 1 to 1. Okay, we already said if a homogeneous system has only trivial solution, it is 1 to 1. Okay, so these two says that they are true. The equation xb has at least one solution for each b in Rn. Okay, because A has all the pivot positions. Okay, so it will span whole of Rn. Okay, so clearly for every b there is at least one solution. The columns of A span Rn. Okay, that because they are n pivot position, definitely it is going to span Rn. The linear transformation is onto. For every v there is a solution. Okay, system is always consistent for every vector in Rn, so it is a onto mapping. Okay, so this is also true. The columns of A form a basis of Rn. Okay, this is again true, because the columns are linearly independent and they span Rn. So both the definitions required for basis, though the properties hold linear independence and span. So it forms a basis for Rn. Column space of A is whole of Rn, because the column span whole of Rn. Okay, so column space A must be equal to Rn. Dimension of column space A is n, because dimension of this is dimension of Rn, and that's n. Okay, dimension of row space A will also be n, and rank of A is also n, because rank equals dimension of column space A. Null space A is containing only one vector, the zero vector, because the homogeneous system is always consistent, and here it has only trivial solution, which is the zero solution. Okay, so null space A will contain vectors which satisfies this only trivial solution, that means only zero vector is in this set. Dimension of null space A is 0. We said that any space with containing only zero vector whose dimension we say is considered to be 0. Okay, so see, all these statements are all equivalent. That means if you know that any one of these is true for a matrix, then all of them are true. Okay, if any one of them is false for a matrix, then all are false. Okay, so that's invertible matrix theorem for you. Okay, so now we close this lecture for today here. Okay, it was a long one. In the next lecture we'll talk about the coordinate system and the change of bases. Okay, till then, take care, have a very nice day.